Welcome to my channel, INTJ Island. Today, I'm going to talk about what's going on under the INTJ hood. People often get caught up in INTJ stereotyping, where the INTJ is viewed as some particular kind of person, whether it is an evil villain or a strongly moral individual. Some think the INTJ is honest, and some think he is deceitful. But the INTJ is not inherently any of those things. The INTJ processes existing data in a certain way. What he does with the data is as individualistic as it is with anyone else. It is like a car with a good engine under the hood. The car could be used to drive you to work, or it could be used as a getaway car for a robbery. It could be used to take you into the woods where you can camp and hike, or it can take you to many other possible activities based upon your own desires. In other words, the INTJ personality type describes a way of doing things, but says absolutely nothing about what things will be done. The INTJ leads with introverted intuition, and that means we tend to be slow in the way we deal with the unknown. We look it over and think about it before we act. If someone talks to us, we listen, and we listen well. What is being said is processed through our introverted brains and compared with what we already know, and it automatically is sorted out into something that makes sense to our minds, especially if it fits in with patterns of what we have previously created about how the universe works. If it doesn't fit in with a pattern, we temporarily set it aside and simply continue to listen, and then research it in the future. When that happens, I tend to ask questions to clarify the point. These questions can show my desire to find both any flaws as well as any supporting evidence in the argument being made. But it is not an attack. I am seeking understanding. Understanding is very important to me. Consider what happens to a jet engine when a bird gets sucked in. It might very well clog the engine and bring a plane down. It has, unfortunately, happened. But that is in a way what happens when our busy minds are processing input in our natural way, and someone starts feeding us useless small-talk drivel containing little or nothing of value to us. Our minds are churning away on processing input, and along comes what amounts to random noise. It can even feel painful when that happens. It is a relief when it stops. This is how we process input, or we perceive the world, and our normal mode of operation. This says nothing about what information we will find most interesting, what patterns are stored in our brains, or what our particular slant on any topic will be. It only shows how we approach things in general. Different INTJs will each process data in a similar way, but the end result can be quite different because we each have our own sets of likes, dislikes, and desires. We then interact with the world primarily through our extroverted thinking. What the exact actions will be are unique to the individual INTJ. We are not cookie-cutter clones of one another, but rather we use the same basic tool set in our own way. Our extroverted thinking strives to find ways to do things that will work in the outside world. We think about what steps to take in order to reach a goal. We think about how best to organize things. We think about how to deal with people, and we even think about love. The latter can be problematic because many people, perhaps even our mate, will want to feel about love, and thinking just gets in the way for them. In romance and other personal relationships, it is common for an INTJ to do things for the one he cares about. Through performing various actions, he attempts to make life easier, more enjoyable, simpler, or to be otherwise enhanced in one way or another, and thereby show how much he cares. This can be a problem when the other party is interested in sharing the experience of doing and not just the results of what was done. The INTJ usually wants to have a clear path to act, and others can get in the way. And in attempting to do something nice for his lover, he may hurt her feelings by leaving her out of the process. In the workplace, the INTJ will tend to look a project over and use his intuition to run through the big picture, searching for a pattern of something that will match and provide guidance on how best to tackle the problem. And then his thinking will hammer out the details of what needs to be done. From the INTJ point of view, this all makes sense and appears to be efficient. And if he is working alone on a project, it usually is. However, it leaves other people out of the equation, and that can be problematic. All too often people introduce a level of chaos, and the more of them involved, the higher that level is likely to be. It can increase the difficulty level of getting the job done. Again, this is the general take on things from the INTJ perspective. It doesn't speak to what the actual job or project is. The INTJ might be a band member working on some music, an author writing a book, an electrical engineer working in an organization designing a sophisticated computer system, or he might be a chef in a fancy restaurant. The INTJ type describes how we approach things generally, but not what things we approach specifically. Once we move out of our personal wheelhouse, the intuitive and thinking world, we come to our introverted feeling. This tertiary function is described as being a child, immature and not fully developed. It can react with strong emotions, sending us into passionate love or strong anger when it is released and allowed to run free. It can make us feel uncomfortable and out of control, and that is something that an INTJ just doesn't like to feel. And yet, there's an allure to falling in love with a wonderful person and sharing your inner world with that special one. In 4 months, my wife and I will be celebrating our 44th wedding anniversary, and I can think of nothing in my life that is more important than this relationship. My intuition and my thinking, in the end, have taken a back seat to my introverted feeling, which brings me daily joy in sharing life with my wife. But being the tertiary function in our cognitive stack, introverted feeling is not as fully developed as our top 2 functions, and it can express itself even more individually from INTJ to INTJ. We all must learn to deal with this function in our own way. We can say for sure that it is there, and it will come out, and at times will disrupt our lives. It has the potential of being wonderful, or it can be horrible. And something that is quite distressing to the INTJ, it can be both at the same time. For example, when you are in love with the wrong person. Some INTJs will find ways of containing their introverted feeling so completely that they tend to check out of the social world almost entirely. Others will take it as a challenge to master this unpredictable function and will develop techniques that will help them to work within active social situations routinely. The only thing we know for sure is that this is a function that all INTJs struggle with at some point in their lives. It is there, under the hood, and it is something we all have to deal with. Finally, we come to the bottom of our cognitive stack and find extroverted sensing. This is the least developed of our functions, but that doesn't make it go away by any means. In fact, the 2 child functions can get to playing back and forth in our heads and disrupt our lives, as our feelings and our sensing feed off each other. We can binge eat, drink to excess, or do other destructive things when our sensing takes over. For me personally, my extroverted sensing has expressed itself in a love for certain sports, like baseball, table tennis, and racquetball. I think my love of performing music is closely bound up with my introverted feeling and my extroverted sensing. Whether I am performing or listening to others perform, there's a strong emotional component to what is going on and being taken in through my extroverted sensing. All 5 senses come to bear as we live life, and whether it is the touch of our lover, or the taste of a wonderful meal, or the smell of popcorn and hot dogs, and the sound of the crack of a bat and the crowd hitting its feet and yelling at the top of its collective voice, sensing can bring a quality to life that can be wonderful. Perhaps it is because it is not as controlled and as fixed in place as our top functions that makes it so enticing to us when it takes over. The child comes out to enjoy the world, and it is wildly different from our normal existence. The mind, under the INTJ hood, will tend to act in a certain way, with certain built-in strengths, weaknesses, and even quirks. It is impossible to categorize all INTJs into any one pigeonhole. We will tend to think for ourselves, but what we think exactly can vary widely. We tend to plan and organize, but what we plan and organize is as individual as all the rest of the package. We generally tend to avoid socializing in large groups, but we can be very much at home visiting with the right people. And who those people might be will be as individualized as all the other parts of who we are. When we speak of INTJs, we are talking about the way our minds work, but we do not define what they work on. There is no set definition of who an INTJ might be or what he might do in life. We don't live in INTJ chains, destined to live just one kind of life. We are vibrant, highly individualized people who can do anything we want to do. We will have to work harder at some things than others will, but that doesn't close any doors entirely to us. We can solve problems, and that is one of our strengths. Working towards becoming the person we want to be can be set into the framework of being a problem that we can solve. Being an INTJ is not a box that you can't get out of. It is a box of tools which you were born with that you can use to do anything you want to do. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you click on the bell, you will also receive notifications when I put up a new video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.